Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we take a look at a creepypasta called Blood the Nightmare, about a game called Blood, so let's enjoy Blood the Nightmare. Have you guys ever heard of the game Blood? No, don't answer that, I'm sure you haven't. Don't get me wrong, the game does exist, just considered abandonware. Here's a little history lesson for you. When 3D Realms was celebrating their success for Duke Nukem 3D, they began two projects right afterwards. One was called Shadow Warrior, while the other was called Blood. The game was set to be released in 1996, right after most of the expansion packs for Duke. This was a ploy to continue its long line of success in their company, by releasing different series using modified versions of the build engine. The modified version was to enable the use of more spirits, while using more voxels on one screen at one time. Nearing its completion, Monolith Games bought Blood off 3D Realms and completed it shortly after. Blood was released on June 20th, 1997, however it was overshadowed by id Software. Blood had to compete with Quake 2 and Hexen 2 that used a much more advanced engine for its time, and because of this, Blood was overlooked on many occasions. Monolith released an expansion pack known as Plasma, while 3D Realms released the second expansion pack known as Cryptic Passage. These didn't help, and ultimately the game was forgotten and lost. I'm dead serious. The source code for Blood was never released to the public, thus modding the game itself is considered impossible. I remember my father playing Duke Nukem 3D often growing up. I used to watch him plow through hordes of enemies using unique weapons and listening to the hilarious dialogue Duke is known for. At the time I was 8, so most of my memory is rather fuzzy. Yet the game Blood was something I remember most. It's not a nostalgia trip. In fact, my father insisted that I never watch him. He said the game was too violent and gory. He said it might give me nightmares, so I never really saw the gameplay. That's all I remember. So here, sitting in my apartment, I finished my homework and decided it was time to relax a bit. So I listened to music as I looked through countless watts for Doom. And having Doom on Steam, I wanted to find one that would be fun to play until I, came across a link for Blood. Here's the link, I'll just put it in the description for all of you. The game itself is fun and addicting to play. And after seeing how I can get it for free, I decided to jump on it and give it a shot. No viruses, no malware, nothing. It's a complete rip of the game and works just fine. So look into the link and give it a shot for yourself. You might be asking, how's this creepy at all? Well, I'm getting to that. I know this may sound like a cliche or misuse of blood, but this game is exactly what the title says. There's a lot of it, and sometimes exaggerated. It's something for you to take a look at and see for yourself, otherwise the story would just sound like a B-grade telling of an experience that most bad creepy stories tell oftenly. So after several months of playing, Blood and beating it over and over, I looked into the history of the game and wondered why this wasn't really known to people. How could this forgotten relic disappear from gamers all around? Duke was an amazing game, and this would have topped 3D Realms' charts. In fact, I believe that Blood would be dethroned. It would have dethroned the king from his chair, if it was known. After hours of research and reading what little I could find on the game itself, it was time to call it a day. I left my computer on overnight so the virus scan can do its thing while I slept. The next day I noticed my Google Chrome was up and minimized already. On a site that I don't remember visiting last night, it was a Wikia page with a link in it. However, the Wikia didn't have any information on it. It just said Blood for its header and just missing text. Just a link. At first I was reluctant to click on this link and just passed it off as a misconnection from my IP. Therefore, dismissed it. So I closed the window trying not to think about it and just wished I, did forget about it though. During class that link was just on my mind. I couldn't for the life of me get out of my head. I knew if I clicked on it something weird would happen. Just might happen if I did. Just something might have happened. But curiosity did get the better of me. I opened the history page and opened that same page that the link was on, and just before the Wikia page was full of, void of information, it was just the link. So I did what anyone else would do. I clicked the link, which just refreshed the page and populated the Wikia with information about Blood with other links containing a modified version of the game. Red flags flew into my mind. The source code was never released, so how can a mod exist? So I closed the window and just said, fuck it. And about 5 minutes later, my computer detected a virus, and it kind of freaked out a bit. It took some time to clear up the mess the link gave me, but I was able to contain it just fine. But, on my desktop was this RAR folder with a modified version of Blood. Somehow, it downloaded itself and self-installed the game folder into my C drive. I sat there looking at the folder, the game, and just wondered how the hell this happens. I scanned the RAR folder to see if it was just another virus, and it came back negative. With a sigh, I decided to try it after all. It's here, and apparently it's here to stay. The mod was called Blood the Nightmare, and in its README it said that it contained 7 new levels and 1 hidden exit. Try to find me. Try to find me? What does that mean? I thought to myself. So once started, I found myself in an office building. Rather well done, and difficult too, mind you. I shotgunned my way through hordes of enemies, blowing them apart with TNT, all while trying to survive this onslaught. And as hard as it was considered to be a very good mod. Well, I can't exactly say it was a mod, more like an expansion with new levels, for the game didn't really add anything new. At least that's what I thought. I finished Nightmare with some trouble, but I never really did find the secret exit, so I played again to look for it, checking all corners and crates, looking at all desks and walls that look awfully discolored to indicate that there might be a secret behind it. And until on the 5th level, behind a bookshelf, there was a door that led to a secret, which held an exit marker. After completing the stage, it took some time for the game to load. I was thrust into a muddy, unfinished level filled with garbage and gargled pixels and voxels. It was difficult to tell if I was failing, falling, standing still, or moving. The only indicator I had was seeing my weapon move side to side when I walked, but as the stage was made though, it looked as if I wasn't really progressing at all, so after a few minutes of what I think was walking, I guess, I heard welcome, and then I just died. One hit, one kill. I don't even know what hit me. So I started again and placed, in the same stage again, to once again hear, welcome, to die in the same manner I did before. This went on for about 3 loops before DOSBox had crashed due to low memory. I started the game again just to skip that secret altogether, but the title screen changed, took me off guard, and kinda caused me to look in confusion. The gargoyle that sits in front of the title with blood underneath it is now animated. It looks the same, but now it's just a nightmare. All the options were working and a new episode was added, though a bit on the non-creative side, it just said blood as the episode. I appeared in the same room you started the game on episode 1 level 1, but the walls this time showed pictures of real violence, and not just pictured but animated one. If you shot or stabbed the wall, some blood would actually spurt out, or if you just waited long enough, you saw it anyways. There was a child who was beaten to death, a man cutting his own fingers off with a knife, some pictures of cannibalism, and it just got worse as I progressed. The monsters acted normally, but said nothing when they were activated. Not only that, but they moved faster, just there was one problem though. There's only one difficulty, and this was on the hardest setting, so needless to say, it was relentless to get by. But just like anyone would, I died. And when I came back, I noticed that the monsters I did kill just stayed dead. I also saw my dead body there too, and every time I died, it just kept coming back. I saw where I died last at. It seemed that this disgusting remake of the first episode was just redone in a sick way. The further I went, the harder it was, and soon enough, my body littered the levels everywhere. Eventually, DOSBox had crashed due to low memory. So I sat for a while thinking to myself about this. I wasn't scared, but just genuinely creeped out and disgusted, but I wanted to see the ending of this so-called mod. So I booted the game again, and the gargoyle was absent from the title screen. Instead, an option had come up. Continue. I was spawned in the same room of episode 1 level 1 with the textures back to normal, and when I jumped out of the grave, I noticed my body laying in front of me. All the secret items were missing along with weapons. All I had was the pitchfork. I found more of my bodies lying on the ground, more and more littering the area. The monsters that were there were not completely static and turning their view away from me, even when I circled them. They kept looking the opposite direction. They could be killed, but just won't attack. When I reached the end of the stage, there were countless bodies of myself. The game didn't let me go to the next level. Instead, I lost control of my character. I turned around and watched the dead body standing up again, slowly, then reapproaching. I watched the game try to defend itself and try to get away from itself. It said nothing at all, but stabbed as much as it could while attempting to run away. I heard him wheezing and breathing hard as if genuine fear had taken over. I watched as more of the bodies rose and walked slowly to his location, like how some of the monsters would try to get you, though with smarter artificial intelligence. I watched as he struggled and tried to get away. I couldn't see what weapons they were using because of how old the game was, but I did notice that they were damaging my character. I watched as his health slowly drained until he died. I still wasn't in control, nor could I respawn. I just saw the camera point upwards and look into the hundreds of people that looked like my character, and then they all turned in one direction as if looking at something. The final boss of the game walked up and stood in front of me, then swung his arm. The screen flashed red and spurts of gore flew upwards. I shut the game down and took a deep breath. I had a cigarette to calm me down. I went back to the wiki site that had the link, but surprise, surprise, the site just doesn't exist anymore. I used to think that scary stories and supposed haunted games were just make-believe, but now that I have, something happen to me that I can't exactly explain, it's hard to think what's real and what isn't anymore. And after I smoke, I rebooted Blood again. Nightmare isn't there. In fact, the RAR folder and everything inside of it was missing, but just this one text file, and it read, "You still didn't find me." I deleted that in the folder. I'm not gonna look. It's not worth my sanity. I'll play the original game, but not that. So, this was Blood the Nightmare. Not gonna lie, the title put me off, but in the end it wasn't all that bad. The phenomenon was built up well, and, all the acquiring made sense, and the pacing was well done, and it didn't feel that this creepypasta, overstayed its welcome. Now, the game itself, Blood, and mind you, the game does live up to the title, truly a bloody and gory game, and it is quite fun as well. So when the game is mentioned, and the phenomenon is brought up, and the controlling at the end, when you put it with the context of the game you're playing, it makes sense and it provides a near experience. And it's not just entirely out of the realm. I mean, it's not like you took Harvest Moon and just turned everything to demons and sacrifice and all that crazy shit. So it's not like you took an unrelated game and just tossed unrelated concepts into it, just killing the whole experience. Moving on to the whole modding and requiring the source code business, it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever when you look at it. Modding doesn't necessarily require a source code, especially for what this alleged mod did to the game. Hell, plenty of popular games don't have release source codes. I mean, it's a very rare thing when a big game, or even little games in general, release their source code. Yeah, I mean, you can bring up examples like Grand Theft Auto 4, which has a very healthy and flourishing mod community, so no, you don't need source code to mod at all. Plenty of games are moddable with a closed source, Minecraft included. The game download exists, and I did link it in the description, so you can try it at your own risk. Once again, the acquisition of the game made sense. I mean, it's better to have something that just sounds, completely normal versus, tossing in crazy shit that you just don't need. Because when you do that, you begin to raise questions, and just it begins to ruin the whole thing. And then we had the build-up, which worked well, and then we have the ending, which, again, it worked. It was better than, other endings where the whole protagonist would just hate games forever, and, here it was just that one mod, so, all in all, it was an okay creepypasta. It kind of off, it was kind of off-putting at first, to be honest with the title, but it's a prime example of don't judge a book by its cover. Now, what would you rate this, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.